in the waiting room, of course. All right. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Hope McCutcheon. I am coming at you from rural Georgia, so pardon if there's any glitches in my sound or delay or whatever. I'm actually traveling from Texas to Charlottesville. I got here by plane, but then decided to intentionally miss my connecting flight to Charlottesville. So my luggage is in Charlottesville, but I'm in Georgia right now, and popped into a Starbucks that happened to be inside of a Kroger. So I also am going to apologize for any grocery store noises in the background, but I thought it would be relevant to explain all the noises. So I apologize for that, but I'm excited to be here, and this is an important event that I wanted to obviously make a priority and not delegate to Craig, although I know he would be willing to do it. So I appreciate Craig's partnership as well. I know some of you guys are here first time. We just chatted a little bit with you. So I wanted to welcome you guys first time, and then second time, that's a good sign if you came back. This event is the third Tuesday of every single month, with the exception of December. That's the 1 month we take off from doing it, but the other 11 months of the year, we're here. We are virtual right now, but hopefully that's changing soon. Unfortunately, today I don't have an announcement about that, but I want you to definitely stay tuned for September because we may be hybrid, which would be really awesome. For those of you guys that are first time, which actually, was there anyone first time? I just asked that, but now I don't remember. I think everyone I thought was first wasn't. Kathy, maybe? I don't know. Maybe she's been here before. So I'll do a quick recap. Typically what we do is we have a early stage presenter. They share about their company, and then they have an ask for the audience. And that gives you an opportunity for their ask to participate and help them solve a barrier for growth. And also helps you be kind of vested in what they're doing, which is cool. And then after that, we have a second speaker, which is a seasoned entrepreneur, if you will. That's our crash and learn speaker. So they share stories that you typically wouldn't get to hear about their entrepreneurial journey and the lessons that they've learned the hard way. And I've found that despite your background, you can always get something from that. And I think that's pretty cool. Today is a unique day because we did have a crash and learn speaker, but unfortunately something came up for him last minute. And so this is this is the first time since I've been running this for about 3 years that we haven't had a crash and learn speaker. So what we're going to do in place of that is I have a discussion idea. I thought it would be cool to kind of do like a round table session for anyone that wants to stick around and participate. So I'll talk about that at that point. And then I will have a breakout room for Molly afterwards. So she's at early stage, I'll get to that, to chat with her a little bit more. And we'll probably end early today. I anticipate being closing it down by 9:30 when all that is, and that's after a breakout room. So the discussion, the kind of meat of the meeting until about 9:10, 9 o'clock, 9:10, and then the breakout room with Molly for the last 20 minutes, if anyone wants to do that. So that's the plan for today. And Craig will continue to let people in, but this event is run and organized by several organizations. So CIC, the Community Investment Collaborative. The second organization is the SBDC, the Small Business Development Center, which I think I saw Rebecca on here. Maybe. The third organization is CBIC, Charlottesville Business Innovation Council. And then we're also sponsored by the Batten Institute at UVA. So we're very grateful for all of those organizations. We'll hear a little bit more about them during announcements, which is another thing that we do during this. So I wanted to
I'll anticipate what she was going to say. I think she's going to introduce Molly, but let's see if she comes back. If she doesn't, Molly may have to introduce herself. Well, I'll introduce her and then she can tell us about herself. Hey, Hope.
She's frozen in coffee cafe.
Yeah. One place I wouldn't want to be frozen. So anyway, I think we'll just move on. Hope will rejoin us. I don't know if she can hear us, but usually we begin by introducing our young entrepreneur or new entrepreneur at an early stage of what they're doing. And Molly has been kind enough to join us this morning. Molly, I hope you're okay introducing yourself.
Sure.
And then we'll go from there. And so the way this happens is Molly will present what she's doing. And afterwards, we will, she'll have an ask or two, and then we'll respond. So I give you Molly.
Sounds great. I'll take young entrepreneur and new, but I like young. So my name's Molly Braswell, and I am coming to you from Woodbury Forest, which is north of Charlottesville. It's a boarding school. My husband works here, and so I have stolen his office. I have 2 little boys at home and a dog, all of whom like to bother me, so I snuck away. So I'm from North Carolina originally, and then went to UNC Asheville for studio art. I then moved to the Northeast and went to grad school in Boston, and then worked in Boston and then Maine, mostly in museums, history museums and art museums, and then kind of wound my way into fundraising, which I really enjoyed. But I think, as I told Hope, I finally was honest with myself and realized that what I really wanted to do was own my own business. I'm a 4th generation small business owner, so I think it's just in my bones maybe. So I've been working on SIDECAR for the last, gosh, I think this will be 4 years maybe, and I'm having a blast. So I am so
Thank you
excited
for
to be here.
introducing yourself.
Yeah,
By the
sure.
way. I appreciate it.
I should be more prepared to do this, but
No,
Yeah,
I thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Keep rolling. I totally interrupted you to say thank you for introducing yourself.
yeah.
But
So
SIDECAR.
working on SIDECAR, and I have been really enjoying it and have been so impressed and thankful for Charlottesville. It is like the best place to own a business, I think. So yeah, so I can tell you about SIDECAR now. So I run SIDECAR. SIDECAR matches people who want some work but not full-time work with companies who need some help but not full-time help. So the idea is that for companies who don't have the budget for a full-time person, or maybe one full-time person doesn't make sense because they have a few different needs. They need a little bit of bookkeeping, a little bit of project management, maybe some graphic design. SIDECAR can be the solution for that. So I have a team of highly skilled folks who are interested in contract work, and then I pair them with businesses who have more work than they can handle. Often the business owners actually have ended up with a team of SIDECAR people, which has been a happy accident. They've started with a project manager and then reached out and said, oh, do you have a bookkeeper or a marketing person? And that has been kind of this great surprise, because then the SIDECAR people get to work together and we can be this one-stop shop for business owners. It also works in the way that I originally imagined it, which is for smaller businesses. There's like a one-to-one relationship where the business owner gets a SIDECAR person and they work together, and that works well also. I think it's helpful to hear a little bit about how this started, just to understand the vision and the problem that I'm hoping to solve with it. So when we moved to Charlottesville 4 years ago, we moved for my husband's job, and I was finishing up a program back where we moved from and was looking for a true part-time job. And those are really hard to find. I looked up and started working with a business owner in Charlottesville, and pretty immediately it was a win-win. So he was able to offload every task he didn't want to deal with. He was able to focus on the things he did well and focus on the things that he was specifically skilled to do. I was able to then have flexible work that was really interesting. And then through that combination and relationship, we really helped him grow his business because he was able to shed kind of everything that was weighing him down. So that was going really well. And then at the same time this was happening, I started noticing that so many of my peers were having to take steps back from traditional 9-to-5 jobs because they have small children. And this could be like a whole talk of its own, but one of the biggest surprises to me becoming a parent was that the world is still really set up as though there is a stay-at-home parent. So one parent needs flexible work. I think we thought my husband's job would be flexible. He works in education, and it is not flexible enough. Like someone has to be able to drop everything. There's these weird pickup drop-off times. So I was just kind of noticing all the people who are stepping back from traditional jobs, and these people are highly skilled and often experts in their field. So I started thinking, wouldn't this be ideal if a business owner could get access to those people's brains for a few hours a week? Most likely those business owners couldn't afford those people full-time. Those people aren't interested in working full-time. And so in return for the business owner getting the skills, the person gets the ability to develop their skills, have resume continuity, and to have interesting work that is the amount of time that they want to spend each week working on something. So the profile of the team right now is a mix of freelancers, so folks who are interested in just this lifestyle and this way of working. They have other clients. And then the profile of the folks I just mentioned, so stay-at-home parents who are able to take on anywhere from 1 to 20 hours a week. I've also noticed that that changes pretty quickly. So I've had, just in the 4 years I've been doing this, I've had a couple team members who started it being able just to work 3 hours a week, who now their kids are a little bit older, they're in preschool, so now they're up to 15 or 20. So that has been an interesting thing to learn too, that it changes really quickly. I would say that 80% of the work we do is project management, and then 20% of the work we do is for specific skill requests like bookkeeping, PR, web design, and stuff like that. The specific skill requests tend to be more one-off, whereas the project management is just kind of ongoing. So SIDECAR clients get a project manager, and then they just kind of have kept working with them as long as the project made sense. So I think it's helpful, given my question for y'all today, to say that I run SIDECAR like a staffing agency. So SIDECAR adds a percentage to the team member's hourly rate. So the SIDECAR fee comes from the client side. And when I get a new client inquiry, this is my process right now. So I meet with the client to learn more about their needs and what their pain points are. I then turn to my team to figure out who I think would be a good fit based on their skills and capacity. I then connect the two of those people for a call to see if it's a good fit. I then circle back with the client and the team member to make sure it is a fit, and then mostly to make sure the scope of work hasn't changed, which happens a lot. Like I think the client meets the person and they're like, whew, you're smart and capable. Like, you could just do these other things. So they tend to kind of pile on in the meeting. Once the client is on board and there's an agreed upon rate and there's a clear scope of work that everyone's agreed on, then the work begins. So on paper, that's 4 steps. So my question for you today is, there seem to be legs to this idea. I have never advertised, but I have a lot of referrals, which is great. But the onboarding process is painstakingly long. So I don't know if it's because it's not a super common business concept, or there are not a lot of businesses like it right now. So there needs to be a little bit of education about how we work, or if it's just that small business owners kind of can tend to drag their feet or might be nervous about adding like a new ongoing expense. But often this happens a lot, where I'll meet a client and they seem really relieved to find out that we exist. And then it takes a really long time for them to give the final okay. Like they meet the team member, they're pumped about that person, and then it seems like I can't quite get them just to nail down the specifics and sign the contract. I think some of that is a nod to just how much they need us. I think the clients are just too busy, and small business owners tend to have too much on their plate. So given what I've told you about what SIDECAR is and how we've been operating so far, my question is there anything that you can think of that might help this process move more quickly and more smoothly? I know it's matchmaking kind of at the end of the day, so it does take some time, but it feels like the time is often on the client side. So I'm just curious if there's anything you've heard that might make this process run better, stuff I should add, steps I should take out, or things like that to help it run more smoothly.
Hey, Molly, it's Jeremy. Can I ask a question? When you're sort of signing these contracts, how unique are the contracts from one client, from one partnership to the next? Are they completely unique, or are there some parts that are, or some of it really standard?
That's a great question. So the contracts themselves are standard. So what would change would be the scope of work and the rate. So making the contract actually takes like, I mean, a couple minutes. It seems like it's more like what makes a business owner just finally commit to, honestly, I think some of it's commit to valuing their own time. Because I think as business owners, we all tend to say like, oh, I'll do that, and I can do that, and I can do that. And then realizing that we shouldn't be doing the invoices and we shouldn't be doing the blog posts or whatever. So I can't figure out like how to stop that hesitation.
Molly, I've got a weird one for you. Could you offer in some way like a money back guarantee against the first 10 hours of product work, so that that way they would be able to say like, all right, I can try this and I can see if this guy turns out all right, or man or woman turns out all right. And that way you could eliminate that risk and eliminate that fear going in, and they could just try it for the first 10 hours. So, and then if it doesn't work out, they could get their money back in some way.
That's a great idea. What constitutes not working out, do you think?
I would have probably guess a personality conflict, or the person
Okay.
isn't listening to the business owner.
Okay.
Do they know, Molly, going into it, what the cost is? Is there an idea? Because I know we work with a lot of small businesses, and it is time, but it is also money. They're usually pretty strapped. So, that can be a barrier to entry. We've seen a lot. And so do they know going into it, an idea of the cost?
So I have to say, I think cost and pricing is like my number one, I wouldn't say problem, but just figuring out like where we are in the market is always hard. So the short answer is usually they don't know until probably the third step, because what I've had happen, and I've learned to just accept these requests. I get requests all the time for admin. We actually don't even really offer admin, because never once has it been admin. So business owners will say like, oh, I need an admin. And then we start to talk to them, and it's like reaching out to clients, it's tracking projects, it's like reaching out to the client's vendors. And so I'm hesitant to say what the admin like rate would be early, because once they, like I said, also when they meet the sidecar person, my hope is that they're all really impressive. I think they are. Then they tend to add more stuff. So the rate, usually I work with the sidecar team member on the rate after kind of the final scope of work. So I do think you're on something. I wish there was more straightforward like pricing maybe.
Molly, this is Trisha.
Hi.
One thought I had about that is, even if you're not able to give like specific pricing, like a comparison of like, if you hired a person for this, it would cost you this much a year, but like you could get relief for as little as like starting at this amount or something like that.
That's a good idea.
Where it's not like, you're not saying you're committing to this, but just giving them an idea of like, because like as a small business owner now, I'm like, I could really use some support, but like I'm looking into hiring a virtual assistant. And so I know that I actually do need admin help, but like the idea being, if I hire somebody, I know I don't have the funds to do that, but I do need some help.
Right. It's a great idea.
Molly, what you're running up against, I think, is like the delayed ROI on this. So the small business person says, I know I need it and I'll probably make money on it, but I don't know how long that's going to take. And I don't know if I'm actually going to, because it's not like a tangible, invest this in marketing, or take an ad out and I get, twice the business in the ad kind of thing. So I think, do you, in your marketing, do you have anything that hits that head on and illustrates how other people how long it's taken, the kind of ROI they've they've gotten and what form that took and how long that took and that kind of thing. So you can have some case studies maybe. Does that make
That's a
sense?
great idea. I don't have that now, but that case studies, I was just thinking the industries are so different. So that's one thing I love about this job, but so a case study would be a great
Yeah,
way to do it.
but I think from a
Overall,
small business owner is otherwise they were already have that person, I think. And so there's that gauge of you know, I know in the back of my mind this is going to mean I'm going to make more money than I'm investing, but I don't know how long that's going to take, and that's kind of a loose coupling, if you will, between the two. So somehow you have to like hit that head on, I think,
okay.
and relieve that fear.
Greg, isn't that the same thought process that a business owner has to go through to hire somebody in general? That's kind
Well,
of
yeah,
the
that's what I'm
whole
saying. Otherwise they would have.
debate with
Yeah.
staffing in general.
Yeah, but they
Yeah.
need that person
Um,
on the side because they haven't hired somebody for that same reason, probably.
the pricing thing, what James said, I had that same thought, is like, at what point in the process do you talk about that? Molly, I met with your team when I was first starting my company, and that was a big, and where I needed help was marketing and also the logistics of actually getting started. I ended up getting a business partner, and so I kind of bypassed that, and then I later hired an outside marketing company, but to do some of the things. But I remember that being a big question mark in my head, is like, I don't even have a concept of what this is going to cost. Like, I had no, like, I was completely clueless, and it was almost like I wanted to ask, but or maybe I did, but I don't know that there was an answer at
Okay.
that point, because I needed to go back and be evaluated, which I get that. But one thing I do for my company, being a recruiting company, is I have almost like a pitch deck, for lack of a better word. And I'm educating them on how it works. So I have a slide that's, a little bit about my background and why I started what I do, and kind of what makes me competitive as an individual to do recruiting. But then I have a section where I educate, like, this is the 3 different ways that it works. And I do put numbers in there, like, this fee, this is the standard fee for this type of recruiting, or we can do this type or this. And it's educational. And then there's also one that's like, here's all the different services I could do, just so they can conceptualize it. But it's kind of an educational tool that kind of prepares them either before or after our initial conversation. So at least they have an idea, and I think that you could build something like that that's educational, that also includes, and at the end I have references, but I could easily have case studies or success stories in there. So you could have like all of this stuff in one, and you don't have to give, and it's not, it's not a final proposal per se, although I can modify it if it was after a conversation. I could go ahead and put in hard numbers if we discuss something and make it more customized. But maybe some sort of educational tone. Here's how I work,
That's
and
great.
it could even be before you meet with them if it's generally enough.
Yeah, I like what Tricia said earlier too. I think about, I think if you had, here's what it would cost to hire somebody full time, here's a price range, and you could do that within the various service areas. So, you're serving, you have a lot of different talent that you're bringing in. A web developer is going to be a lot different from an admin person, so that you're going to have some variance. And I think, giving that range to set the expectations helps you to sell it too. Like, here's what you would pay for if you're going to hire on somebody, here's that, a general range for pricing. I had a question about the process at the beginning too. When you're asking and you're trying to vet the client and you're trying to vet the person as a fit, is there anything that could be done to self-evaluate or self-select there? And I know there's apps like Moonlighting that's all automated, and your differentiator is that you're providing some of that oversight, so it is different, but are there pieces that you could automate in the self-selection piece early on where they're kind of matching in a way that's a little more that's a little less touch for you?
Well, that's an interesting question. You mean, so like for the client, maybe?
The client
Like
can
they would
submit to
self-select,
you
like
their kind of wish list of their needs, what they're looking for, but they could also, maybe you could have profiles, and it could be what would you call it? Your different, I always lose this word, but
an avatar?
an
Yeah.
avatar of the person, but it's like they're what that person, it could be a pretend Billy or Bob or whoever.
Persona, you're looking for persona?
Persona, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, a persona that would be what that administrator and admin would help with typically, and maybe some of their personality traits for some different options. I don't know if you can build that out as a way to start to self-select and narrow that, set expectations early on to make that process go a little smoother and quicker.
That's a great idea.
Molly, I have a few suggestions for you.
Sure.
One is based on what other people are saying, do like a pitch deck type thing, but maybe put it into videos or separate videos so that you just create the video one time. And instead of you sitting there and explaining it to them, especially for like your frequently asked questions, like how to explain how to do a scope of work, how to figure that out, make videos or a series of videos and then just send them the links so they can watch those videos and it's not you telling them directly. The second one, going off of what James said about automation, maybe figuring out a way to kind of automate the questionnaires that you send to them, for maybe based on like what type of help they need, like industry. So maybe if you have some way, there's like all types of like different software programs, like Honeybook is one that's an easy way to send client questionnaires, but there's lots of ones out there. Or just doing it off of your own website, but just like automate that process. So it's less of you asking them the questions and more they just fill this out. And then based off of their responses, then it kind of like fits a profile and you get it in like a spreadsheet format or some other way that's easy for you to quickly see and match the person a little bit easier. And then third was maybe have some type of incentive, because you mentioned you had people like you'd get to the point where it was like almost ready to sign the contract, but then they would kind of flake out. Maybe offer like a discount or something if they sign within like 2 weeks of meeting with you the first time or something like that, some type of, or if they get like extra hours at no charge or something like that, some type of incentive for them to go ahead and make that decision and sign the contract.
It's great. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to that ROI thing based on what playing off of what James said about the high touch, because you wonder, some people might say, what's the distinction between moonlighting a guru and what you do and that kind of thing. What if you worked out or had, and maybe this could be automated, but a template for figuring out how they're getting return on their investment. In other words, a worksheet or some sort of way for them to assess how they're doing with this person and how it's benefiting them. And you might be able to even coach them on that, on how to get the most out of that person.
But they would fill that out after they had been going for a little bit.
It might be something that just gives them a structural view of what that would look like how to even realize, because again, the reason you're probably supplying somebody that person is they're busy. They don't really have a lot of support and resources and stuff. If they felt better about the fact that they're paying this money each week, but they're getting much more back, how to realize that, how to assess that, whether it's a worksheet, whether it's a little quiz, and then you come back with a response or something, just something that gives them a sense of where they are on this and that this investment is paying off. Because I really think that's going to be the question in their mind the whole time, is each time they write a check, could I go back to doing this myself, or do I really need this, or is this just costing me money? Is it a cost center or a profit center, so to speak?
Okay.
Hey, Molly, this is Anelia. I am wondering whether you can tell us what is your desired next level, because that may inform which way you take to shorten the process. Is it something that you want to grow and become like covering the whole United States, or are you aiming to be local, more like a very unique boutique type of service? Because it's like the value that maybe I perceive you are adding right now is your personal involvement, your knowledge to bring two people together. But you may expand in this direction, or you may try to grow in scope, in which way you want to go away from the customization, you go more toward the standardization. So I don't know whether you have thought about that.
That's a great question. So I think COVID has impacted that quite a bit, because I I think I started regionally only because I live here. So most of my clients were Charlottesville and my team members were kind of Virginia based. And now I think with, and I guess when I started, maybe 30% of the sidecar folks actually went to the physical building or office of the person. And now it's all remote. And the folks who even started at the beginning wanting in-person help have switched to remote. So now my team members are, I don't care where they live. They can live wherever and it's all over. So it has kind of made me think about markets instead of, I don't know that I would think like nationally, but instead of locally, I'm kind of thinking about market. So it's just been interesting. A lot of my team members are in Richmond, the Raleigh-Durham area. I think those are the biggest two hubs right now. I think it's where there tend to be, well, part of it I'm sure is my network at this point, but part of it is where there tend to be this profile of folks who've taken steps back from full-time work, who are still really interested in kind of an ongoing project. So it feels like there's no shortage of the team members. So my hope is to grow it as much as I can. But you bring up a really good point. Right now, I am, not to overinflate my role, but I think the fact that I have vetted these people is really valuable. So when the sidecar folks come to me and say, hey, do you have somebody who does PR? They don't even care to see a resume, because at that point, if they're on the sidecar team, I've gained enough trust with them to just kind of put someone on their invoice and their list of services. I mean, they meet them and I tell them their credentials, but so if there's only one of me, how much, right? Like I see what you're saying.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
maybe way to grow is to train more of you, more
Right,
people
yeah.
like you, which is a different, completely different model, but it depends, you know, what is the end goal that appeals to you at this point.
Versus like automation. I see what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And that can get expensive. And then you have to worry about being cost prohibitive again to small business owners, because they are restricted by cost as well. And I think we're assuming cost is the issue. Have you asked people why it takes so long or why they haven't moved forward? One thing I was thinking of for some of my needs, they're so complicated that I feel like the learning curve is going to be really steep. And then I feel like, I'd like, is there confidentiality? Are they going to take, what's anything to protect me from even maybe giving some of the proprietary information about my business to somebody that could be a competitor or work for a competitor or something like that?
So there is, so I do have a confidentiality clause. So I was helped by the fact that my first client, that was really important. So that's big in my contract. But what you said, James, is really, I mean, so when I first started this, I only did a subscription model. So clients had to pay a certain amount they had to we worked together often on a trial period to figure out the average number of hours they needed a week. And then I charged them for that every month, regardless. And my thinking at the time was the more, because this was true, if they would actually use the sidecar person, they would use them more. Like the more they used us, the more they needed us and the more they used us. If we started with just hourly, I could kind of watch them say like, oh yeah, I need 10 hours a week. And then I would watch them kind of pull that back every week. And then all of a sudden, and I think the thing that was happening is what you said. It was like too daunting to train someone. It was going to take 10 hours of their time to get 1 hour of the sidecar time, person's time at the beginning. And then eventually you would then be freed up of a ton of time. But that concept, I think, is hard to get yourself to actually do. And then I don't have any real data about this. It just seemed like the subscription model was causing a lot of hesitancy. So the hourly model seems to make business owners feel like, okay, I'm only going to pay for what I use. So I kind of have switched back to that. But my original thinking was more along those lines. Like, how do I incentivize them to actually train the person so that they can free up their time?
Would you ever want to?
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, James.
No, just have you asked. That was the other thing. I mean, because I would think about that with my business a lot. I don't know because I don't ask that.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
that's a great point.
What's holding you back? Why is it taking so long? You know?
Right.
I was going to ask Molly, would you ever consider sort of discounting to start? You know, a lot of businesses operate on sort of a free trial period in the beginning, you know, get the first month free. I don't know if you want to do a month, maybe the first week or 2 weeks, just to kind of offset the client's learning curve cost. But I don't know if people are going on to form long-standing relationships with the client, then it may not be as costly to you. But then again, if it tends to be short periods of work, it may not be financially viable.
It's a good point. They do tend to be long. So I don't really have many short term projects unless it's like a web redesign or something that's, the scope is really narrow.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Just it's sort of, I think James brings up a good, having hired a lot of people in past roles, like it's daunting to bring somebody on. So that's a good way to incentivize somebody to give it a try, I guess.
That's a great idea.
Hey, Molly.
This is Don Dunham. I work for a global consulting firm that operates a little like you. And the thing they do is the contract, the general terms and conditions is signed up front. And the call out is just a one pager where you get very specific about the job and the cost. I'm just wondering, I'm not sure how you're doing your contract, but sometimes dropping 6-8 pages on somebody can be daunting. So I'm wondering, could you get that out of the way, and the information on there specific to their needs would be some very specific questions that you go looking for matching the right person, and maybe a range of cost. So you get the major part of the contract out of the way. You get the surety that they're willing to put an ante on the table. There's no commitment for signing it unless you provide the person. But then the bringing the person, the PR person, is literally a single piece of paper, which is a call off, which then allows, if they want to call off somebody else, you already got the contract, and you just have to put a single piece of paper. Oh, you want 20 hours of a marketing person, you want an admin, you want a PR person, and it all just sits under that contract. But they've done something to sign something that, while it's not worth any money to you, it shows enough commitment for you to spend your time. Because I can imagine a lot of times you've spent a lot of time up front and it just doesn't go anywhere.
Right.
Just a thought. And
Yeah.
I'd really look at your contract, because I've rental real estate, and I once had a tenant said, "Why do you have a war clause in your lease?" And I thought, well, I guess because my lawyer put it in there, so I took it out. It's like sometimes a lot of that stuff is a little too over the top. But just a thought, the call off mechanism allows a little bit of mutual commitment to go on. You at least have something to frame what they want written down, and you have some commitment that this is real. Just a thought.
Yeah, and that could serve too, as like some other folks have mentioned, like a little bit of an education process too.
Correct. And there's no commitment to them.
Right.
It just gives you the right to go try and match their needs with your people.
That's great. Thank you.
Let's unless someone has something pressing, I also will have Molly in a breakout room for continued discussion in a minute. But does somebody else want to throw something out there, or do you guys want to wait for the breakout room?
I do hope. I had a question for Molly. I can be brief. Molly, what are you doing to help the client create a vision of what their life will look like once this work is done? In other words, what's their why? Why do they want somebody to do this for them? Obviously, they're trying to free up their time. What do they want to invest that time in? How will that help them? When you help them create that vision, you're creating a sense of value. And when they can perceive that value, and it's not quantifiable, but they can see that they have more time for marketing, they have more time for getting the work done. And perhaps, like we've heard from so many people, they have more time to spend with their family because they're not tied up at the office until 11 o'clock at night getting this stuff done. Help them create that vision that's in line with their why, with their purpose. And with that, you'll create a sense of urgency. Are you doing anything along those lines?
I really love how you said that. So I think I have not, all of these comments are helping me see that I think sometimes I need to actually like say the thing or do like ask the question, ask the why. I feel like I have gotten like 80% there in the sense that I have noticed that these conversations with the clients are really, they feel almost like therapy. Like these business owners are really often like letting me into like what keeps them up at night, what is like, I can watch their stress kind of leave their body when they're talking to me, and it feels really good. I feel like we can really solve their problems, but I'm not taking it the next step, which is to say back to them, okay, if you work with a sidecar person, we can give you more time to do X or Y. Like I'm thinking about, I feel like I like learned this in an English class, like tell them what you're going to say it, tell them what you said. I feel like I'm not doing the tell them what you said part very well, maybe, where I say back to them what you just mentioned, which is, okay, your life will look like this with a sidecar person. I'm watching them get part of the way there where they start to breathe, but I'm not, I think closing that loop is a really good point. So that's great. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Great suggestion, David. And thank you everyone for your participation. There was a lot of really great ideas that came through. We will definitely, like I said, have Molly in a breakout room, and maybe, not maybe, but definitely at the end of this. But what I wanted to do next is a discussion. We'll keep it till maybe 20 minutes, depending on the engagement. But what I thought we could do, or you guys tell me what you want. I'll tell you what my idea is. In the interest of time and what you guys want to do, we could do that, or we could go straight to the breakout room or whatever you guys want. But I thought it would be fun to have a discussion around what are some pain points in entrepreneurship that, or fears even, that either keeps you from getting started with your own business or taking that next step with entrepreneurship. And I thought it would be a good discussion because we've got a mix of early entrepreneurs in here. And then like Philip, very seasoned entrepreneurs, Jason Brewster, who has seen a lot of different companies, Don, who's been around, business for a long time, Alex, same thing. There's people on here that have a lot of experience that could chime in as well. So what we could do is throw in the chat, what are some fears or what are some, like I said, pain points around entrepreneurship. And then we could just kind of have a roundtable discussion, maybe one or two people to chime in per pain point, and do that for like 20 minutes. What do you guys think about that idea? Yeah, I won't be offended if you don't like that idea, by the way. And then the alternative is we go to the breakout room right away. If you like it, you want to do that?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. All right, let's do it. If you want to throw in the chat, what are some things that you see, some things that might be holding you back from starting your own business or whatnot? And I'll pick a couple, maybe 2 or 3 to actually talk about. And yeah, and then what I'll do after that is we'll do announcements real quick and then kind of, like I said, wrap up with the room. Okay, so got a question, and again, maybe throw some more out there, but right now a question around finding and keeping talent. So hiring related questions, health insurance costs. What else we got? I think the talent one, we can start there where you guys are brainstorming another question. Let's go ahead and start with that one. James, if you want to go ahead and ask the question. And then again, if you guys want to throw 1 or 2 more questions in the chat, maybe we'll pick one more after this discussion. And I think having just maybe 1 to 3 people chime in would probably be enough because discussions could go on forever, but James, go ahead and present your question.
Sure. Yeah. So for me, the thing recently I've seen I've been in business for just over 2.5 years. So going into COVID and then coming now out of COVID, hopefully. But I haven't been able to keep people, and I work with small businesses. It is cost prohibitive, so I feel like I can't compete sometimes with the pay that they're asking for. I have a solution for health insurance that I'm looking into starting in January that was somebody that was referred to me by my insurance provider, and so I do see some options there, which is encouraging as a small business owner, that where I can provide some. So to that other person's question, but scaling for me, I keep running into this thing where I feel like I'm investing so much time, energy into training the person. I mean, they're getting educated. I've brought people on because of my lower cost, that I can afford. I'm bringing on people that don't necessarily have the experience, so I'm training them. And I've just run into this past week where it's been a year, and now they're going, "Ooh, I could make 20,000 more if I go work for a corporation," and where it's an agency. I'm a marketing agency, digital marketing agency. And I work with small businesses. And so to keep my costs down, I have to keep my staffing costs down, but I want to keep them on. So I'm trying to find ways to keep people on. I offer an incredibly flexible work environment where it's like, you don't need to come into the office. I don't keep track of your hours. I just ask that you get the job done. So I try to add some of those extra perks that I know they wouldn't be getting at that corporate job. But I feel like I'm training them, and then they're leaving me and they're going off to somebody else, and they're taking all the things that I've poured into them with them. And now I've got to start over again.
I imagine retaining talent is a big issue in general for companies. So who would like to chime in on some perspective on that? And it doesn't have to be okay, I was going to say it doesn't have to be his specific scenario, but just hiring, retaining in general.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Julia.
Hey guys, sorry, I've been lurking in the background. I, as Molly probably appreciates, have a dog outside barking and some kids in the other room. So if you hear that, it's an explanation. But yeah, I'm with you. Today is a really difficult time in talent retention. And I don't know, what I've discovered over 5 years of working on this with tech folks is that each person has unique individual things that they use as their highest criteria for staying at a job. So understanding your person deeply is, I think, the number one thing that you can do to retain them. So I know for our folks, some people, their top line thing is how much money they're going to make. But a lot of folks, it isn't. There are other things that are important to them. So having that conversation, like, what is it that's really critical to you in this job? Is it the flexibility, or, is that not really as big of a deal to you? Is it, finding some kind of health insurance? That's the question I put up there, because I know that back when I was an entrepreneur, that was a huge issue for people and a real barrier. They wouldn't leave their jobs because of health insurance. So it could be any number of things that is like the really top line issue, but getting to know that personal individual deeply enough to know that what matters to them, I think will help you recruit somebody who is going to be less likely to see the dollar sign someplace else after you've trained them. And then also help you understand like how you can personalize their experience as an employee, which is easier for you to do probably given that you're a smaller size. So those are some ideas.
And James, this is Don. A lot of people are offering sign-on bonuses, but the important thing is not giving it up front. A lot of people I see giving it 3 months down, but maybe you do it 6 months down, and as long as they're working out, unfortunately, people need something to keep them there. Like Julia said, it might be flexible working. You may think you give flexible working, but back to your comment, have you asked? Make sure you are asking. But a lot of things of retention, people may want money, but it might be, can you offer a 401k that goes up every 6 months till it gets to 10%? Can you do things that actually are not huge money, but it shows the care and it shows the value of them staying on? It's not just, I'm going to make $20,000. Because if you got somebody who wants $20,000, unless you're going to expand the job, you can't afford them. and they're just gonna have to go. But how do you know, like Julia says up front?
Yeah, one of what Don just said sort of was something that was on my mind, which is, can they, great, $20,000 a month. Can you provide opportunities for them that get them, to sort of create their own mini business under your umbrella where they're going to make $30,000, $40,000 a month and retain flexibility? Is there a room for them to grow beyond and be their own boss while still working for you, but like help you grow your business, maybe is another way to think about it.
It's a good one.
Cool. One more, or we can go on to the next question.
Oh, but I didn't want to, this is a very naive question, but James, is it possible that maybe your business model could be something where it's a catch and release, where you're only expecting to have a certain amount of time with that person, where you're getting the value out of them as an employee for 5 years or whatever it is? And as soon as they get into that stage where you can no longer afford them, you should be moving on to another employee who's at a lower cost gain ratio.
I like that idea a lot. That's almost like a Lou Holtz model, right? It's like, I'm going to train coaches. Like that was his, I'm going to bring in the best people to become the best leaders in this market, even if they don't stay with me, right? It's like, I love that idea as well. And maybe the shelf life is a year and a half. And I need to be thinking in terms of bringing the next one on and being grateful that I'm able to give them that, provide that education, that experience, and then send them off to succeed. And so I really actually, one of our core values is generosity. And I believe, I think that helps me a lot. And I think that may be a better way to look at it. Thanks.
Awesome. All these questions in the chat are really good. Maybe you guys can tell me the third one you want to do, but I'm going to go ahead and pick the one that Jeremy asked as the second one. And the reason is because I've had a lot of early stage companies on here that's one of their kind of situations is when how do you focus in one thing that you want to do? You have a lot of ideas, which a lot of entrepreneurs do. How do you decide what's the thing you're going to commit to? And this would be a good question for, some of you guys that maybe some of the seasoned entrepreneurs on here that have had ideas. How do you identify, I'm going to go after this one and then tunnel vision on it and write it to the end, as opposed to, jumping around or trying to do too much or whatever. How do you commit to something? How do you know what that thing is? Does anybody have any perspective on that?
So this is Philip. I guess I'll jump in. One of the benefits of being old is that I've gotten to have several careers, and none of them came from any great planning, contrary to what I think people believe, especially young people, that you do the right things and somehow good things will happen. It was all pretty much serendipity. But the thing that really allowed 180-degree shifts is being open. So ideas, to address your question directly and come back to that, ideas are really plentiful. Lots of people have lots of ideas. The devil is in the details of executing. And what I found is if something really catches your imagination, you're not going to be able to walk away from it. It will tend to come back. Out of all of those ideas you're thinking about, there's going to be one or two that are going to say, if I could really do that, that would really get me excited. And then you start working on them and you start talking to people, and then you see which ones gather momentum. And it's sort of organic. You can't really plan this. And then all of a sudden something starts coming together. And those typically, if you talk to entrepreneurs, are how they started their business. Something happened, they had an idea, somebody said, gee, if you could do that, that would be great. And then somebody else came along. So I know it's really, I guess my point is it's frustrating having all these ideas, but don't try and plan them. Just pick a couple and start working on them, and see which ones gather momentum. And then if there's a third idea that you keep, waking up in the morning and thinking about, maybe go to that one instead of the two first ones. I'm not sure if that's helpful. It sounds a little disorganized as I listen to myself.
No, I think that's really helpful. And I think, one of the things you said up front was, you had done a lot of things. And I think that was something that also hadn't occurred to me of like, boy, just because you pick one thing doesn't mean that that's the thing that you're going to do for the rest of your life. You can do one thing and move on to another thing later.
Another thing you can do, and it's kind of somebody else. So my internet just went out and came back. So the chat is cleared for me. But one question I remember being posted, James asked was, how do you ensure viability? And so this would kind of answer both of those. But one thing you could do, Jeremy, is also with some of these ideas, go find people that are very experienced in these fields and ask them more questions about how they got started. What is it that they love about it? What is it that they don't love about it? Just do some market research, if you will, on some ideas. That's what I did before I started my recruiting business. I went and interviewed a ton of successful, business owners and found a mentor through that, by the way. That wasn't, I wouldn't be, competitive or what, I'm non-threatening. But just, all right, is this idea, does it have legs? Would I have support if I actually started it? It's also a good way to gain support. But you could do that with a couple of different ideas and then just see what you have.
That's great.
I recommend, not to be an advertisement for Darden, but effectuation.org, or I think .com, has some really, this is Sarah Sarasvati's work about what makes entrepreneurs entrepreneurial. And there's some really interesting thoughts in there about, how do entrepreneurs pick what they want to do? And how do they bring other people into the tent? And, how do they get a minimally viable product? And it's really about the entrepreneurial behavior. It's really not about the idea, which a lot of entrepreneurs are about. So it's effectuation.org, I think. Just check it out. It may give you some good ideas.
I will.
Yeah. To echo what Philip said about being open, one of the things that's clear is that throughout our education and our training, we're kind of taught that there are disciplines. We're taught that there are areas of specialty and that, you become a specialist in something or, and I think the good entrepreneur breaks those down in a sense that you don't know that one idea you have is connected to another, and you can reframe what you're doing all the time and kind of ignore those what are really kind of socially constructed artificial barriers to disciplines and businesses and ideas. So you don't necessarily have to feel like it's the one. You actually may get the same satisfaction and purpose out of something that isn't necessarily what you think it is, if you will.
Yeah, that's there's definitely, fuzzy boundaries sometimes around the ideas. And so, yeah, they may be branchable into another one. Thank you.
And I can build on what Philip said. Effectuation is definitely an interesting path. And if you talk to Sarah Sarasvati, who's the individual behind it, it really isn't about the idea at all. It's about who you are, who you know, and what you know. And in life, oftentimes the way I've taken that guidance is to put myself in positions where I can increase things like bird in hand, or there's another concept called crazy quilt, which I think would be great for SIDECAR for you to look into, because that's essentially what you're trying to do is formalize an effectual crazy quilt. But again, going back to who you know, what you know, and who you know, things that can put you, like if you were to go say get a Darden education or go to exec ed or get a certificate or whatever, that's increasing who you are and what you know, and doing things like CE2 increases who you know, and that's that really is the entrepreneurial journey. And You can start with an idea, whatever that idea is, or multiple ideas, and most likely over a period of time, like I think there was that movie Sliding Doors, you almost will kind of end up where you're supposed to be anyway. But the one thing not to do is to be very causal in your actions and say, well, I'll do this when, because that's not how effective entrepreneurs think. And Saris knows that from interviewing thousands of effective entrepreneurs and understanding how they really think. And the way they think is action now, act now. Don't make excuses for why you can't proceed with something because you don't have a certain thing today. Well, that's fine. You need to be effectual and act on what you can do and what your bird in hand is.
Yeah. It's like just get in the game. Just do
Yeah,
it.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. And don't think that that tomorrow is the last day that anything will change. Like it'll all just keep changing.
And you have to think of you are the instrument, right? So just get yourself out there and then you'll kind of navigate your way.
Yeah. Good advice, guys. Thank you. I needed that little pep talk.
All right. What should we do? One more.
And by the way, we have a series of videos on this. If we wanted to put them out somehow through CBIC, or you wanted to share them about all of these various concepts.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, we can talk about that then, Jason. Yeah, one more short one. We can either do, there's that health insurance question entrepreneurs have questions about, or keeping consistency. How do you keep consistent, especially when you're starting a company? Which I don't know if that's just, yeah. So what do you guys want to talk about? One more. I don't have the chat anymore, so I can't read them. I can't fix, or we can just move on. I really enjoyed this, by the way. I think it was cool to just hear some different ideas and get some different perspectives and take advantage of the seasoned minds on this call as well.
One thing, Hope,
Let's move
I'm
on
sorry.
to
if that's okay.
announce.
I was just looking at the
James.
consistency. It's James. Sorry, I was just thinking about the consistency thing. I was wondering if you want some of our clients, we have them on a retainer, and it's just a lower monthly cost, but it keeps them on, and they'll commit for a 6 or 12-month period. So maybe if it's some of those projects that you're bringing on to help with consistent income, I don't know about consistent work, but that it may be, and then you can maybe schedule some of those people that you're taking in monthly amounts from to your less busy times and service them then. Anyway, just thinking about consistency.
That's a good idea, Jill. And I don't know if it's relevant to your company, but.
Yeah, that's relevant. So I was asking this question for both my photo and video business, which is a 5-year-old business, and my consulting agency, which is the 4-year-old business. And they both seem to have the same problem, but that could definitely work more for consulting. That's an idea I could try.
Well, anyone else have any insight into how to get consistent business? I think, some of it is, if it's a newer company, just there is a ramp up period where it will be inconsistent. I think, as you're getting started, accepting that, but then building your relationships and your pipeline and, kind of pipeline management to some degree. Like I think a lot of people, when they're busy, then they stop sourcing, and you have to always be doing both. You have to be working, but also sourcing, and keeping kind of having a pipeline mentality. Like, what's in your pipeline? Are you managing it? Are you keeping in touch with, most of my business is repeat. So keeping the relationship up, even when you're not doing work for someone, so the next time they have the need, they come right back to you.
I was going to add too, I don't know if are the lulls always the same? So if you go back and look, like, do you have seasons where it's, I would imagine with photography, definitely, where there's more. So maybe taking a step back to anticipate the lulls. So thinking about like other projects you could do in the months where there tend to be lulls, or ways you could reach out to previous clients to like schedule something, but maybe put it in the lull season if you can. just to know that might be helpful.
These are all
Great
great
idea.
ideas. Thanks. I'm taking notes over here. Thank you guys.
All right. Well, it is 9:15. Go ahead. Sorry. Yep. Who was that? Don? Sounded like. Did somebody start to speak up?
Sorry, it's Philip. Just the last comment. I had a partner at one point. We were in a consulting business and it had all these ebbs and flows that, and it's always the same problem. It's while you're doing the work, you're not marketing, the work ends, and now you have to spend time marketing and there's a lull. And she was great because she basically said 3 hours a week, or I don't remember, there was some number. She said, I will spend marketing. Whatever else I'm doing, there are 3 hours every week. I will find time to write letters, say hi, let people know I still exist. And if you set that time aside and discipline yourself, you get to the end of the week and say, oh shit, I didn't do my 3 hours. It just creates some pressure to remind you to do it. So maybe that helps. She was better at it than I was. I could never do what she did.
Yeah, kind of carving out the creative time, like that takes creative energy to do that versus the executing energy. And it's kind of separating those. I think having a period of time that you're creative and that's all you're doing, and then the rest of the time you're executing. All right, well, announcements, how that works is I would have each organization share any upcoming events. And then I'll open the floor to, if you have any upcoming events you want to share with the group, or if you're hiring, you can also share that. So I think that we have 2 out of the 4 partners on here. So let's start with CBIC, Charlottesville Business Innovation Council. Craig, if you have some things to share. So I didn't prepare you, but do you have anything you can share? I know those are some upcoming events.
Sure. Thanks, Hope. So CBIC's doing a lot of very exciting things right now. This week, in fact, it's either this week or next week, but you can go check it out anyway. We're launching what's called the Hub CVA. And you can find that at thehubcva.com. And this is something we built under a grant from Go Virginia for Region 9. It connects businesses, resources, individuals, events, news, you name it, for the region. Have a little patience because we're still kind of in beta, but it's been an incredible undertaking to build this. And the idea is that you can become aware of and connect with businesses and individuals within the region for resources to collaborate, to hire people, for talent, for all kinds of things. So check it out when you can. We're very proud of it, and we're going to be building on it over the next year. Like I said, it's kind of in its infancy, so we've just seeded it right now with some companies, and there's a few bugs to iron out, but just know that that's there, and come the fall, it'll be kind of in a mature state. The other thing is we have our gala and a golf tournament and a wrap party coming up in September. Now, the gala and the wrap party are tentative only because we're trying to be cautious with the this Delta variant. The golf tournament is full bore ahead because even during the pandemic, the Glenmore Country Club had facilitated golf tournaments, in a very safe way, 1 person per cart, all kinds of precautions. So if you golf, or you know anyone who golfs, or if you just want a fun outing and some incredible networking on September 13th, I believe the tee time is 8, registration is 7 a.m. It's a Monday. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to kick off our week. Even if the gala, we have to move to another date because of safety reasons, that is going to go on. So please join us. It's going to be a lot of fun. I believe it may be Ting may be sponsoring it. There's a few other people that are sponsoring it. We're going to have all kinds of the fun things that you have at golf tournaments, games and prizes and all kinds of stuff. So look for that September 13th. Our gala is scheduled for September 17th on at Castle Hill Cider, and the wrap party is going to be at a downtown location, which is going to be announced very soon. That's on Friday night. So I will put the link to our event page in chat for you. But just know that that's coming up, and we'll advise you. It's risk-free for everything. So if you buy the tickets and the gala, for any reason we have to move it, that'll be fully refundable. So please check it out. We're very excited.
Awesome. Thank you, Craig. Another organization that helps host this event is CIC, Community Investment Collaborative. I know Carolina is not on here. I don't think there's anyone else representing that organization on here. But their website is cicville.org. Great organization, and I know some of you guys went through their program. Also the SBDC, I don't know if there's anyone on here representing the Small Business Development Center of Central Virginia. But another great organization with a lot of, I would definitely go to their website, CVSBDC, Central Virginia SBDC, CVSBDC.com or org, I don't know off the top of my head, but there's lots of different events and programs and opportunities for entrepreneurs on there. And then the Batten Institute. Jason, I don't know if you want to share anything on behalf of the Batten Institute.
No, nothing really new, other than, of course, UVA is going back to full in-person classes and in-person everything. So I don't know exactly what that means for us, but hopefully it will be an opportunity sometime this fall for people to come out and check out the new iLab in the heart of Darden. We, as they say, it's location, location, location. We had our separate building, but now we are in the core of Darden and the academic environment. So it's a really exciting space. We've been really looking forward to having people come and check it out. But hopefully sometime this fall, we'll be able to invite people over to see it. Hope.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Jason. All right. Does anyone have any other announcements of upcoming events that they want to share, or is your company hiring? You know, James's company is hiring, but is who's hiring? Julia?
Hey, Hope. Yeah, we're clearly hiring, as you know. So we're pretty much always hiring, but we are currently hiring mostly for technical positions. We're particularly looking for cleared folks that are software engineers, data scientists, DevOps people, full stack, front end, back end, sysadmin. We have a slew of positions available, so reach out to me or Hope about that. And then I also wanted to say we are having an event. We're trying to figure this out, same as you, Craig, with COVID, but we're having a mapathon. So it's kind of like a hackathon, but it's for maps. And we're partnering with a local company. I believe it's a nonprofit, to try and do mapathon on topics that are relevant to a variety of nonprofits. I think that the focus might be on diversity and inclusion, but I'm not entirely sure. So that's coming up on September 10th, and we're going to post about it on our website. I work at GACCRI, formerly CCRI. So our website is still ccri.com.
Awesome. Who else is hiring? Thank you, Julia. Graham, is your hand raised, or was that earlier?
Yes.
Okay.
Hey, this is Graham Shar from ArcWise Wealth. We are hiring a part-time marketing specialist, and I will drop the job description in the chat for anyone you know who might want great part-time work.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, speak up now, or I'm going to move on. Okay. Two things. Number one, we do record this every month. I don't know if you noticed that, but CBIC sends it out on their newsletter, cvilleinnovation.org. You can sign up for the newsletter. All you do is put in your email address and your name, and you're done. And we have a newsletter that comes out every other week, or maybe every week right now, but every other week. And we do attach the recording of this to that and send it out. So if you want to pass it along to anyone that may have missed it, put in the background noise. But and then also, please stay tuned on whether it's my LinkedIn or CBIC's newsletter or the other organization's newsletter on September Whether or not we're going to do this virtually or in person, my hope was it would be hybrid and we could do both. But we're working on securing a location downtown. But my hope is that in either September or October, we're in person. So we'll see, but just, I guess, stay tuned. I think it'd be safe coming on here, but I'll update the Eventbrite if there's an in-person option with the address and all that. So you'll know that way too when you register. Make sure that this is recurring on your calendar, and that you sign up for the link and that you come and bring your friends. I hope when we're back in person, it continues to grow back. You know, this has been as many as 50 to 60 when I was in person consistently every single month. It'll be really fun to get it back there. So, anything else? So what we want to do now is we can have Molly go in a breakout room until, let's say, 9:45, unless, yeah, let's do 9:45. And we'll also keep this main room open. If people want to stay in here and chat, you're welcome to do that. And then Craig will pop into Molly's room just to remind you guys. Well, actually, you might not be able to. What, can you do that, Craig? Would you be able to leave the main room? Just keep an eye on the time.
Yeah, no, I can send a message to the breakout room. Just
Okay.
giving you like a
So
5 minute,
send a message when the,
yeah, 5-10 minute warning or whatever.
okay. So Molly, Craig can help you go there if you need. If you look on your screen on your Zoom, there should be an option to join a breakout room. I think Molly's is already made. Or you can stay here. If you leave a breakout room, it'll actually send you right back here. It'll give you the option to leave the meeting altogether. Just leave the breakout room and it would put you back in the main room. So we'll keep the main room open as well if you want to network here. And we can manually move you as well. So if you don't see the option or you can't figure it out, just stay in here and tell Craig that you want to go and he'll move you. So it was awesome sharing with you guys, listening. You know, thank you, Molly, very much. I've been wanting to have you on here for years to share about your company. So I'm glad that this happened. So we will see you guys the third week in September.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, Molly, you can go. Do you know how to go to your breakout room? I guess she does. Okay, so she's there.
And I have to jump off as well, Craig, which you know, so I'm going to say bye to everyone as well.
Okay.
And you can stop recording as well.
Okay.
I hope. Thanks. I don't see
Bye.
an option for joining another room yet. Should I?